Hey, 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 welcome to the attic. It is February 9th, and we have some serious banned and restricted announcements, not only from Commander, but in just about everything else. So let's get to it. I'm Manadad. This is the channel where we explore what's fun in Magic, mostly on Arena, as we try to do this live. Oh my goodness. Okay, so big headlines here for Commander. Biorhythm unbanned. It goes straight to the game changer list. This is a 6-mana sorcery that makes each player's life total become the number of creatures they control. Obviously, you can outright win the game with this, right? Bounce everybody's board at instant speed. The next turn, untap, play an Ornithopter, play this 8-mana sorcery, just win the game. It's just the Commander is at this point now where this card, yeah, that's not a very fun way or fair way to have a game end in Commander, but the chances of it actually happening in a Commander game are just so vanishingly small. And if you want to build your deck around winning with an 8-mana sorcery, they're saying, okay, go for it. It's a game changer. So it's only going to be at the higher power levels. I think I'm fine with that. I actually think maybe they could have gone farther. We'll talk about that in a second. Also, finally, they freed my boy, Lutri the Spell Chaser. They've created a new category called Banned as Companion. And this, if you weren't around during Ikoria, there was a cycle of 10 of these, one for each 2-color pair that could companion. And companion was a busted mechanic. They ended up having to errata all them so that they cost 3 to put into your hand instead of being able to play from outside your hand. But Lutri was banned before it ever had a chance to see play in Commander because you would just automatically add it to any blue and red deck because it's just a free roll. So they they've said, okay, well, but if you're not playing it as a companion, it's actually fine. So let's just create a banned as companion category. And that is my summary of all this stuff. They're comparing Biorhythm to Worldfire, which also got unbanned, Sway of the Stars, and Coalition Victory. So it just feels like if those have been fine, Biorhythm could be fine too. And I agree with that. And Lutri I'm fine with. Now they have a whole section here on Sundering Titan. I personally think Sundering Titan, it's a 7/10, it costs 8 mana. Comes down, it blows up a land of each basic land type. And people can bounce it and blow up a lot of lands. It's already, I'd say blowing up 5 lands is mass land destruction, so it's already covered by the rules governing cards that do mass land destruction. So I don't think it needs to be additionally covered by the ban list. It could certainly just go to the game changers list, I think. Again, it's these 8-mana cards that in a modern game of Commander, if you're getting up there to the high power spells, there's a bunch of spells that do stuff like this. There's a bunch of spells you could, there's a 7-mana in blue guy called Agent of Treachery that you can also blink and steal all your opponent's lands or steal your opponent's commanders, and then your opponents can't play the game. So, blink with Deadeye Navigator, like they're talking about here. So I just don't see how Sundering Titan needs to be called out any different than any of that other stuff. I think it would just be better if you kind of put that under the rubric of the mass land destruction is kind of uncool and needs to be discussed in Rule 0, and it should really only be allowed at the higher power, more anything goes tables, and just leave it at that. But they're leaving Sundering Titan on the ban list for now. Also, they're leaving Ionia, which again sort of falls under those arguments I've made. There's other cards that do similar things, not as much as Iona. It's a 7/7 flyer for 9 mana. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a color. Your opponents can't cast spells of the chosen color. So completely hoses a monocolor deck, but I've played Orzhov deck against an Animar player and the Animar, which has protection from black and white, was like a 21-21 and could just one-shot me, and there's nothing I could do about it because I was in black and white colors. To me, that's basically the same as Iona coming down and locking me out of the game as a monocolor deck. Now, to be fair, is anybody playing this fairly? No. So it would really only be played in CEDH, and then at that point, why shouldn't it just be banned entirely? As a pretty good, you know, I think a pretty good set of arguments, right? There's nobody who's gonna be able to play this like fairly or funly in a different way than like Sundering Titan. You're gonna play a big robot and blow up 5 lands, but you know what? That doesn't stop the game. The game goes on. That to me is a lot less egregious than Iona, which can really just like shut out a single player. I don't know. There's a lot of things that can shut out a single player, though. I think the social contract would probably keep Iona from seeing anything but the most marginal play if they did unban it. But I get why people hate it and why it is staying banned. Gristlebrand. If the other two on the safer side, Gristlebrand certainly is not. Premier reanimation target takes advantage of 40-point life total in commander to draw a good chunk of your deck. In many cases, win the game on the spot. The card had to be banned extremely quickly for power level reasons when it first premiered in Avacyn Restored. If the card is a tremendous risk giving people access to this game-winning draw engine, why even consider it? And again, 8 mana 7/7 flying lifelink, pay 7, draw 7 cards, pay 7 life. Gristlebrand is sweet. People love the card. It's in pretty much every other format, and it's a ton of fun to play. But at bracket 3 and above, is it really out of the question? If it was a game changer, and could it open up something in CEDH? I think they're right to be considering it. I think, personally, I think it'd be fine. There's just so many crazy things you can already do that I really feel like the ban list needs to be reserved for just those things that are like really break the game completely. So I'm sort of a ban list minimalist. As somebody who doesn't have it like completely memorized too, I've been in that position where I throw a card into a deck because I think it will be fun and it goes with the theme and the commander, and then I play the card and people are like, hey, that's on the ban list. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm sorry. And you take the card out, whatever it is, Prophet of Crufix or an Emrakul or something, and you go, okay, but that's illegal, but here's something that's very similar. Obviously I can just put that in instead. But then you go, okay, but why is the similar thing not banned and this thing is banned? It's more like a historical artifact. It's like something Sheldon lost to in the early days of Commander, and it's just been put on the ban list and never revisited as the format has gotten faster and it's become harder and harder to play expensive spells. I think a lot of these like really top end things are definitely worth re-examining. They talked about Jewel Lotus coming back. They're not going to do it yet, but it's still, under consideration. Thassa's Oracle Ristic Study, they didn't see a need to do it at this time. Thassa's Oracle seems mostly enjoyed by the competitive community, not showing much outside the highest power level tables. Again, here's that argument, right? Because just like Biorhythm, right? Thassa's Oracle can you do a combo and you win the game with it. And that's how the game ends. And in metas where people play combo, that's sort of expected and fine. And when metas where it's not, it's a real feel bad. I hate when people say, I'm playing a low power level deck, and then they bring out this thing and proceed to combo off and kill the whole table before anybody else has done anything. But again, that's more social contract of like, hey, that was kind of not a cool game. We really mismatched on power levels. Let's talk about that. It's a conversation you can have. Ristic, I think it's fine to ban, honestly. It just crosses that threshold where it's like Soul Ring, which I also think would be fine to ban. I know it's sort of like part of the DNA of Commander, but it's just like similar with Ristic. If you're in a blue deck, you play it, and in like a color like blue, which has a lot of draw options, Rhystic Study being the number one means it's really, really good. So I just think it could go. It can honestly go. And Soul Ring 2, people just get out to too far of a jump with it. Anything that it's funny because I said I'm a ban list minimalist, but on the other hand, I'm sort of like a variance maximalist with Commander. I much prefer games where it's like I don't know what opponent's playing, and there's a lot of times I sit down at a table, opponent tells me the commander, and you immediately go through like, what's the average deck list for that commander, and boom, 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 boom. That's what everybody's got. The commander has blue, they've got Rhystic Study. The commander has white, they've got Smothering Tithe. Is it like thematic or whatever with their commander? No, but it's good in any deck with those colors. So, you might notice the announcement coincides with the one for all other formats, which we're about to get to. That's not something to expect going forward, just how the timing landed. Unlike last year, not going to limit ourselves to just one banned and restricted update window in a year. If we decide we want to do something such as unban a card, we can come back later this year and do it. Not necessarily say we will, and we're not withholding any changes we want to make today. But based on your feedback, we have that option. Please be sure to share your thoughts on the cards above and anything else you'd like to see changed with us. And I've seen the commander panel on Blue Sky. Rachel Weeks is on there soliciting feedback and stuff. So I think there's tremendous communication from the commander format panel. Even though I don't agree with some of these decisions, I totally understand the decisions and the way they've written it, laid it out, and I think they have the best, things in mind for the commander format. I don't think anybody is trying to hurt the commander format. I think they all want everybody to be able to go to an event where you don't necessarily know people, have a common language, sit down and have a fun game. It's a really hard challenge. Commander is like designed on top of the rules of Magic and sometimes against the rules of Magic. They don't address the hybrid rule thing here, for example. A lot of people apparently let them know, don't change the hybrid rule, and they didn't. But I don't think it would actually hurt Commander as much as some people think, but there you go. It is what it is. I would like to play more of my hybrid cards from the new Alorwyn Eclipse set in my Commander decks, but whatever. Commander already has incredible flexibility, so does it really make that much of a difference if you let people play hybrid? And obviously, you can still rule 0 whatever you want to do. So it's almost more of like a matter of Commander for people playing at events where they don't know people. In that case, and I don't play at that many events. I've gone to the card shop and played against randos a couple times, but I mostly play with people I know. Sometimes they bring in a new person I've not played against, but then you kind of suss that out, and then you play that person a couple more times, and you've got. I think it's hopefully not too hard to have those conversations and just say, yeah, I want to play hybrid in this deck, or I want to play this custom commander I've played against, or I want to play, you name it, uncards. And just have that conversation. Okay. So where are we at in this stream? Let's talk about, I'll put a chapter break in here. We're at 1357. Let's talk about, I'll write that down. The banned and restricted announcement for everything else. And you can read here. Oh my goodness. Pen went dead. You can read here, look, standard no changes, pioneer no changes, modern no changes, legacy no changes, vintage no changes, pauper no changes, then alchemy. And if you're playing alchemy, please let me know what you think of these changes. These are all rebalances. So I have not checked on in on alchemy in a while. I don't recognize most of these cards. Got a sliver here. Apparently it was too strong. They had to rebalance it. They don't say how it was rebalanced here. Historic, I did find somebody to talk about these historic changes. We got Eldrazi Temple banned, a Giant Akatl Pariah banned, Crop Rotation banned. Scholar of the Lost Trove is banned. Magus of the Moon unbanned. Harbinger of the Seas, the blue Magus of the Moon unbanned. Force of Vigor unbanned. Force of Negation unbanned. So some of the 0-cost spells unbanned. Endurance, again, a 0-cost spell unbanned. Wilderness Wreck coming back. That's interesting. And Agent of Treachery unbanned. Also interesting. Is Winota banned? Because that can go in a Winota deck. That's interesting. The picture they use here. Timeless Necropotence or Necropotence, depending on how you say it. Let me know in the comments section what your preferred pronunciation is restricted. So kind of interesting. Timeless has very few restrictions. They thought the Necropotence decks were strong enough, and I guess we'll get into their reasoning on that. No changes to Brawl, but they do have a note on Brawl, so we'll talk about that. Okay, so it's Carmen saying howdy. And then J. Dean, no changes. Today's standard is much healthier than it was 3 months ago at the time of the last banned and restricted update. I think this is because they switched the Lorwyn Eclipsed. Honestly, I think the play design people had designed a good standard, but by flipping the order of the sets, they got some stuff in the standard card pool that didn't quite have answers for it. But now that Lorwyn Eclipsed has been put in a little later than originally planned, we have all the the dual lands, the shock lands. And the metagame, surprise, surprise, has become much better. And there's something really interesting they put in here. They have some deck lists for some of the Pro Tour. Obviously, if you watch this channel, you've seen I covered. There was a top 8 that had 7 of the 8 decks. I did a video for the deck that won. I did a video for the deck that had the best win rate at the recent Pro Tour Lorwyn Eclipsed. Is it Spelemental? So go check that out. That's what gets talked about. One of these lists here. Here it is. Is it Spelementals? The Andy Garcia Romo edition. And you got Rakdos Monument. And the format's still evolving. They talk about Badger Mole Cub. People thinking that was going to be the overpowered card that needed to be banned potentially, but the recent pro data suggests that there's enough answers for it, that the pros were able to create a lot of decks. And it actually, does it say somewhere? It said it has a, here it is, below 50% non-mirror win rate on day one. So people were teched out for it. It did not dominate. Like Corey Steel Cutter, didn't matter. People were teched out for it. It dominated. Vivi Ornitier, didn't matter if people were teched out for it. That deck dominated. Even to some degree, the lessons decks. People have been gunning for those, but they're still really good. But the Badger Mole Cub, at least, seems to be able to be dealt with. I don't know if I should be scared that a 2-drop card in green can be that good and still not break a format, but there we go. No telling where things will go from here, but the metagame currently looks good. Decks of every color are seeing success. They did say blue is present in more decks than is ideal, which is an interesting statement to make. I don't know what you would ban from blue decks overall. They're like sideboard card or something, because a lot of it is like deceit, like cards that use blue and another color or combine with another color with cards of another color. But they called that out specifically. Over the last year, Standard has gone wrong multiple times for the same reason. Their analysis: a lack of adequate counterplay for powerful cards and strategies. Well, we just talked about that. We want Standard to have strong decks. We want those decks to be attackable, whether by relentlessly targeting the hand with deceit. I don't know if that's like the best play pattern to want. But it is an escape valve to have decks that can attack the hand. So deceit, I think, isn't kind of an important card in this meta, or in the meta going forward. Resetting the battlefield with Sunderflock, Pyroclasm, Ultima, Deadly Cover-Up. And notice like that, well, Sunderflock can be cast for 2 mana. Pyroclasm cast for 2 mana, it doesn't kill everything. But these are 5 mana. board wipes. So it's kind of interesting to see. Maybe they're moving more towards 5-mana board wipes instead of 4-mana board wipes, or even the 3-mana board wipe with split up. Managing single threats with any number of removal spells and counter spells, just absolutely shutting things down with Rest in Peace or Torpor Orb. Those are more sideboard cards. I'm not seeing those in best of one. But again, their emphasis seems to be more on best of 3, which is, it seems like they've tried to speed up the decks, but maybe they're still thinking of it as a best of 3 game rather than a best of 1 game. As someone who almost exclusively plays best of 1, and I assume best of 1 on Arena is the more popular, but again, for competitive, you wouldn't want it to be best of 1. Is it lessons? All right, this is the interesting thing I talked about. Then this is, people have talked about, like, is it okay that they're just sort of making like turnkey decks in certain sets? Like you just do the landfall deck from Final Fantasy, you do the lessons deck from Avatar. Which they're calling set theme decks, or something that have always existed in Magic sets, but we have been actively putting more work into them lately. Our goal with decks like these is to give players who really like a particular set a good entry point into Standard. The high power level of these recent examples is not our sole target for set theme decks. We're looking to make these decks at a range of power levels. So is that admitting that maybe they overpowered some of them? Or are they just saying like, hey, we're trying to make set theme decks. Some are going to be high powered, some aren't. It's a range of power levels, including ones that are fairly strong, but most should be in the range where they can occasionally top 8 tournaments, but aren't a long-term deck to beat. So I think reading between the lines, they feel like they missed the power level on some of these set theme decks. I think it's really hard because then that also becomes the best thing to draft around in draft. And so you're not getting a balanced limited environment when you're trying to make one, color pair ostensibly, or, specific archetype from a set to be the stronger competitive deck. For example, Lorna Eclipse also supports Goblin Typal decks, but Goblin Typal has not proven as successful in high-level Standard as Elementals. Fair enough. I actually love the Goblin Typal deck. We did we did a Goblin Typal deck on the channel, which you can check out after this. We think Standard is at its best when there's a ton of room to explore and a lot of things to discover, which means the strongest deck should most often be showcasing synergies between sets. Currently, Standard has many such decks. In addition to a few strong set-themed decks, the overall creativity and deck building is great to see. We're looking forward to seeing where Standard goes from here. So I think it's totally reasonable to have set-themed decks. I think this is correct. I don't know. I don't have too strong of feelings about that, but you guys can tell me how you feel about set-themed decks. I've seen some people complaining about it. It is not as creative. I kind of agree with that. It's more creative to have decks that are put together over several sets. But there's also a lot more cards in Standard now. Pioneer continues to be a tale of two cities. We took action last November, in part because the metagame on MTG Arena looked pretty rough, despite Tabletop and Magic Online looking fairly healthy in the time since. The health of the metagame has improved, but it isn't perfect. Is it prowess variants, including VV or Lessons package, occupy the top seat of the metagame? Strong win rate in MTG Arena, despite not proportionally showing large success in Magic Online. I wonder why that is. And it's an honest question, because if something is winning against these decks in Magic Online, it seems like it'd be easy to just copy that deck list and play it in Standard. Is it because Pioneer is not really Pioneer on Arena? It doesn't have all the cards? I don't think they have cards that are missing from like top meta decks, at least not many. But if you were a brewer, right, which would you rather, which platform would you rather brew on? Would you rather brew on Magic Online with the complete set of cards you can brew with, or on Arena without it? You would definitely go to Magic Online, and I think probably the more vital community is on Magic Online. It's my sense that Pioneer on Arena is really not that popular. Maybe ticks up when there's like a competitive event that's going to be using Pioneer. But even then, people tend to test competitively on Magic Online. So I don't know. If you play Pioneer, leave your comments. Let me know what you think about it. I feel like when we were doing the metagame breakdowns for Arena every week and looking at the stats on Untapped DG, it was always the same stuff in like Pioneer and Historic and Alchemy. Stuff shifts very slowly there compared to Standard on Arena. Standard seems to get most of the heat on Arena. Modern rules. Once again, people breaking their arm to pat themselves on the back for the modern metagame. I look at it, I see Boros Energy on top week after week after week, but again, it's not dominatingly on top. You know, it's like sub 20%. It just looks like, you know, you talking about set decks, you just buy the set deck from Modern Horizons, you've got Boros Energy. But there's apparently a breakout deck with Jeskai Blink, which they post the deck list for here. Boros Energy has seen an uptick in popularity on the back of competitive success, while Jeskai Blink has gone down a bit. We still see a number of mainstays each week getting a week or two in the sun before the metagame adjusts, something else takes its place. In our eyes, this is a sign of a very healthy metagame with the ability to self-correct and allow for a wide array of play patterns and strategies where players can find success. I'm just wondering, like, they've sort of established this pattern where they rotate Modern with the Modern Horizon sets and Lord of the Rings sets. And then, like, they haven't done that in a while. But, like, now it's back to kind of not being a rotated format. I guess it is because you're putting in new cards like Wan Shitong, Formidable Speaker. I don't know. It doesn't personally excite me, obviously. I have not done hardly any Modern coverage on the channel. But I know a lot of people love Modern. And I enjoy watching Modern content and stuff, so it goes. Legacy, Demir Reanimator was on a generational run of dominance. They took action against Entomb and removed Nadu Winged Wisdom. And Underground Sea is still the top dog. But they're seeing surges from lands, Death and Taxes, blue-based Affinity, Variegated Cradle decks. In a rate that's heartening, we're optimistic about the direction Legacy is heading at this point. Hope to see recent upticks in archetype diversity continue to pan out in the coming months. I don't think Legacy or Vintage change as much, too. So you shouldn't expect a really fast ban cadence like, say, Standard or other formats that change more. But I guess if the deck is locked out a lot of people for a long time, they should be banning it. Vintage, no changes. Happy with the shape of Vintage metagame, despite Lurrus being the first card seen in a large proportion of the games. But they're fine with everything being a Lurrus deck. Okay. Pauper, no changes. Been monitoring in the wake of High Tide's departure. Small but positive effect. And reclaiming sideboard slots, helping bring back some decks that have tough matchups. Keeping an eye on deck like red decks with Sneaky Snacker and Balustrade Spy. And then Mono Blue Tolarian Terror decks are on the radar. There are plenty of counters to the strategy, so they're feeling like, hey, keep an eye on it. Compared to Modern, Pauper always seems to have a really interesting and dynamic metagame to me when I'm looking at it. So whatever they're doing with Pauper, I think is great. And sounds like it's continuing. Now, Alchemy, Standard All-Star Badger Mole Cop, Blue Res Lessons Package have been swiftly adopted, competing with format stalwarts like Teamer Dragons and White-Blue Birds at the top of the metagame. I guess they must have rebalanced some birds, so they're competitive. While we're overall happy with the format, excited for Alchemy Lorwyn to shake things up, we have two rebalances that address specific issues with Best of One Alchemy and Historic. And Kona has been frustrating in Alchemy by putting in Omniscience. So what? But how are they changing it? So okay, just making it cost one more. Hmm. That might be enough to shut the whole deck down. It's a hard one, right? When you're rebalancing, but it shuts the whole deck down to rebalance the key piece of the deck. Val Marooned Surveyor combos with Trellisara Moondancer in historic formats, yielding infinite instances of damage with any way to trigger one of the two cards. Part of our overhauled historic ban list, we are addressing the strength and efficiency of this combo by changing Val from a 2-mana card to a 4-mana card. Okay. So wait, but where's the change? They're just moving it to casual brawl while keeping her out of competitive historic. Huh. Okay. Round a buff to digital cards from Alchemy Bloomburrow and Alchemy Dusknorn, Alchemy Edge of Eternity. Changes do not aim to solve a particular issue with the format, but rather are focused on revitalizing strategies that are popular but not equally effective, and there's more on those. So we'll just kind of buzz through Arena. Alchemy. Let me check if anybody had any Alchemy comments. I don't see any. So let's just buzz through that. Historic. So all this stuff. I actually found this person on X, Maffy the Magic Muffin. And I'm on Blue Sky. So if you want to if I see something cool on X, I usually cross post it to Blue Sky. So those of you on Blue Sky don't even have to bother with the cesspool that is the site formerly known as Twitter. So this person says, Jesus, this reshapes the format. And not touching auras could be a mistake. Subtlety Hidetsugu is maybe still broken, but the combo has to be reworked. Force of Negation is nuts, but Mass Land Denial in a fetchless format sure is a bold choice. I get that Endurance is now legal, but Unearth exists. 1-mana Cyclers exist too. Timeless is still cooked, lol. Well, we'll get to Timeless. By the way, Val was nerfed, so that deck is dead too. Wizards, Auras, and Affinity are the major decks not touched that new Unbans don't hurt much, but Affinity has solutions. I expect a lot more. Black midrange for the other two is historic. Cool now. And they said, well, historic really needed a change of direction at this level. Going to be fun to explore. And Wizards Best of One now reigns supreme again. Easter Island Head. So, yes. Time of Historic's inception, we established several guidelines for what makes a card ban-worthy. Philosophically, Historic was meant to be a place where players could queue up with any card in their collection, feel like they had a chance to compete in a fun, interactive game of Magic. We didn't want them running to mass land denial like Blood Moon. This introduced a ceiling on power and complexity. When you queue up in the Historic ladder, you knew your opponent wasn't going to solitude your creature while you were tapped out. The average ladder deck had a chance to compete. Over time, Historic has come to bear the addition of many powerful transgressive cards, shifting the metagame dramatically from its early days. The addition of Modern Horizons 3 was a key turning point as several competitive strategies that functioned at a modern power level were introduced. Popular ladder strategies remained popular, but they could no longer compete with the top decks in the metagame by win share. And as the decks became stronger, they also became less interactive. Most popular deck used to reach Mythic Best of One in Historic plays Persist to reanimate Scholar of the Lost Trove. As early as turn 2, setting off a chain of spells that ends the game. The other top decks, even in best of 3 Historic, forego interaction in favor of linear consistency. Eldrazi, Boros Energy, Val Combo, Lotus Field Combo, and to a lesser extent Auras are all decks that can end the game in short order without clear counterplay, apart from Enact My Strategy even faster. So that's kind of not, you can see why I don't play Historic. That's kind of not the style of gameplay I'm into, of just everybody's playing solitaire and the person who goes faster wins. Eldrazi is the most dominant strategy in the higher ranks of Historic, comes in a variety of flavors, all powered by ramp from Ugin's Labyrinth and Eldrazi Temple. We believe that an Eldrazi deck without Eldrazi Temple can still be a reasonable strategy in Historic without pushing out slower strategies as it was between the release of Modern Horizons 3 and Edge of Eternities. Boros Energy made making waves. Adjustments to Galvanic Discharge, Guide of Souls, and Ocelot Pride. Wow. The sheer quality of the deck continues to propel it to a win rate over 60%, all segments of the ladder. The individual card we believe to be the largest outlier is the Johnny Nikado Pariah. That card is busted. There, I have an interview with the person who got it banned in the Brawl, competitive Brawl Discord sub. It's just a ridiculous card, and it's got a lot of text. But if you want a breakdown of why a Johnny's good, and you want a place to play it, it's still theoretically legal in the regular Brawl queues, but not the competitive Brawl queues, I think now. 2-drop that's nearly impossible to trade profitably against. It's responsible for many wins on the back of his transformation and many more simply by attacking and blocking. This ban will affect other white-based strategies outside of energy. We believe it's necessary to lower the ceiling of the format. There we go. And crop rotation was being used with Lotus Field combo and then Dark Depths. So they just think, okay, we're banning crop rotation. They're not even going to try to. I mean, they, even though it's an old card, right? They could still do a an alchemy version of it, I believe. They wanted to, but they're not going to. They're just going to ban it. And they're banning Scholar of the Lost Trove, so that there's other people hopefully try other reanimation things. Kind of interesting to see a 7-mana creature banned, but there you go. On the unbans in Historic, they break some of our long-standing heuristics in favor of adding clear counterplay against dominant strategies now and in the future. So, free spells. They're going to let Historic become a free spell format. I think that's a big change. Unbanning 2 cards that are relics of past versions of Historic. Wilderness Reclamation was troublesome when the top of the format was closer to Pioneer. An Agent of Treachery was banned in large part due to its use alongside Winona, who is no longer a problem. Okay, that answers the question. Through the format's evolution and a rebalance. Doesn't show the rebalanced version, though. Going forward, we intend to prioritize power level and play pattern on a card-by-card basis over our past heuristics when evaluating Historic Legacy for new additions. Cards like Force of Negation and Endurance can contribute to a healthier metagame. Will no longer be pre-banned as they were in the past. There we go. Timeless. So yeah, the mono black and black plus blue or black plus green necropotence, I guess, or black plus white. Saint Elenda. What does this do? Conjure a card from your thing and then create an exec white avatar creature with amount of life. Well, I guess that was strong enough. Necropotence had a breakout performance and has continued to overperform since. And so it's a clear power level outlier, requires action. We believe mono black combo decks will continue to exist after this change, but their consistency and ability to compete on a card advantage axis will be more in range with the rest of the format. And Strip Mine not getting banned. Continuing to monitor it, however. All right, Brawl. In the wake of our bans last November, Brawl has become a much more hospitable place for commanders at all levels to develop and enact their game plans. Maybe I just played stuff that's too janky, but like, it's really hard to find a matchup of jank versus jank still on the regular Brawl queue. Even though they've had the competitive Brawl events that have been siphoning off like the worst of the worst, sweatiest of the sweatiest. I wouldn't say worst of the worst. I enjoy competitive style Brawl as well. If that's what if that's what my deck is, they can see the deck lists, and ostensibly they're applying power levels to the cards and trying to match up decks, but the whole system of giving points to the cards does not work. They need a new way to match people up. I think they should just do ELO like they do. There's just a hidden ELO. you know, your player ranking, your how much you win against other decks based on their power. And you know, bronze players against bronze players, and if somebody is way powered, they're just gonna rank right out of bronze, and then the people who are staying in bronze and still losing 70% of the games and having fun playing jank can just do that. And they're getting a lot fewer matchups with the people who want to play the sweaty version. So I think they need they've been experimenting with a new competitive brawl event as a home for those powerful 99 cards that are too much for non-competitive brawl. Right? So there's certain cards that are allowed in that queue that aren't allowed in the regular brawl queues. I'm not sure about that. Again, I don't think that, I would rather they just make brawl ranked. So they have a ranked and unranked like they do for the other formats. I think you'd get better matchups that way. And they already have the programming in place. Obviously, if they could fix the point system and make it good and work and not constantly match you up with Hell Q decks, no matter what level of deck you're playing, that would be better. But I think that's a lot of work, and I don't think they've shown the willingness to do that. So I think we close it. So the following months, they're going to close in on formally delineating the identities of these two brawl events. I'm glad they're looking at it. I'm glad they seem to be moving to trying out the competitive brawl, getting some data. I think it's a positive for brawl. Brawl is really fun, provided you know what you're getting into. You got to put like interaction, the really good interaction cards in your deck, or you're just not going to have a good time. Is sort of my experience, and that's too bad. I would love for there to exist the ability to play the really super janky stuff. So, and you know, and for you to rank up to the point where your deck's not winning as much anymore, and then maybe that encourages you to play a new deck. You're not seeing the same exact deck all the time, whatever the flavor of the month is. That's another thing I think Brawl could have some improvement in. So, do you agree? Do you disagree with any of my live reaction takes? I mean, I've had a little bit of time today to consider this, but again, just kind of first off the top of my head type reactions. So, hope you enjoyed hearing them. I want to hear from you what you think of this breakdown and what you think of these decisions. Overall, again, I would stress, I feel like the teams that do this and consider balancing the format all have best intentions for Magic. You know, I think the people at Wizards who don't have the greatest of intentions for Magic are probably more in the C-suite and the marketing side. So save your ire and conspiracy theories for them, I guess. Or, you know, just understand there's a system in which everything is existing. Doesn't always make for the best. All right. On that note, I've been Manadad, reminding you Magic is a game so fun, even dads can enjoy it. Adios.